Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, joined as always by Mike Tagliere. We're on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. Tags, how's it going, man?
Going, dude. It's a fun day because obviously the trading deadline's coming up. It's next Tuesday, so there's action going on in the NFL that I'm sure we're going to talk about as we go through this. But I had an interesting question for you. I had a friend that bought a boat recently, and he was talking to me. He's like, do I have to name it? And I was like, yeah, you have to name your boat. Like, it got to me thinking, like, if I bought a boat, what would I name it? And I wanted to ask you, if you bought a boat, what name would you put on it? Put
me on the spot, huh?
Yeah, we don't talk about these questions before the podcast. Bobby and I just kind of like let it rip.
I have no idea what I would name my boat. I'd probably just let my wife pick it.
Now, you see, me, I decided it would be Julio. So I wanted to name my son Julio, but my wife legitimately, she put the X on that. She was just like, that's not happening. She's like,
And if you think Tags is kidding, because I'm certain that he's not kidding, Tags really wants dreadlocks, but he just doesn't have enough hair to have dreadlocks. He would legitimately have dreadlocks if he could.
No, I told Bobby that in a private conversation yesterday.
Sorry.
That it was something that I always wanted. I always wanted to grow dreads, but I just don't have enough hair anymore. My mom wouldn't let me do it when I was younger, and I can't grow them now, so it kind of sucks. But yeah, if I had a boat, I'd name it Julio because I think it's the funnest name to say.
You like Julio?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of with Buddy the Elf when he says Francisco. I think that's the most fun name to say. All right. Well, hey guys, obviously you can tell I'm sick. My voice isn't right. I'm sorry about that, but we're just going to chug along anyway. We do have some news to talk about. Then we're going to get into the start sit show. Give you our advice on what we think about the players who are kind of on the fringe of startable or not. But Tags, let's start. Bilal Powell headed to the IR. This kind of caught me by surprise.
Yeah, no, for sure it did. And that's the thing is, like, I knew that he suffered a neck injury, and I had been writing the primer, and I assumed that he wouldn't play, knowing it was a neck injury. Those are usually pretty serious. And so to see him put him on IR, it's obviously not good for his future, because if I'm not mistaken, this is the last year on his deal, and he's probably done the NFL, to be honest with you. We have Elijah McGuire, who is available to come back, I think eligible next week. So he's someone that if you're in a deeper league and you have room on your bench and you need like running back help, I think Elijah McGuire is an awesome pickup because I think he's a good 3-down back. It really stinks that he suffered a foot injury that required surgery, because those usually affect like pass catchers and running backs, that same year. It really hurts, but at the same time, I don't think the Jets want to rely on Isaiah Crowell for, 25 touches a game.
And the Jets think they're going to win. Apparently they're trying to trade for Patrick Peterson right now.
That doesn't even make any sense.
I don't understand, Van. I have no idea.
No, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, they signed Tremaine Johnson in free agency. I know he's hurt right now. Morris Claiborne has been okay as a number 2. I mean, they need a slot cornerback, but Patrick Peterson's not that guy. So, I don't know. That's kind of weird.
So what does this mean for Isaiah Crowell? Is he like a must start every week from this point? Because we're usually talking about him on the show. Sometimes he's startable, sometimes he's not.
Yeah, unfortunately, he gets a matchup with the Bears this week in Chicago, so it's not a great matchup for us to talk about him as like someone that you really want to play because the Bears defense has been lights out. I mean, the only way that you're scoring fantasy points against them was like James White last week, and they're completely different running backs. He's a power back. He's going to struggle to get past this front 7. So this week, I'm not going to say that he's a must start, but going forward, I mean, once we get past this week, I would absolutely say that Isaiah Crowell should be considered like in the top 24 conversation almost every single week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with McGuire, but assuming McGuire comes back and he's not exactly the same because foot injuries just kill running backs, I would assume Crowell is going to get himself 16, 17 touches per game, and you got to start anyone in that situation.
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. It's like that's when you start looking at running back rankings and like why DFS is so different this year and people are willing to pay up for guys like Todd Gurley is because once you get outside the top like 12 running backs, it's just a mess. So it's like, anybody can kind of fill in that role. So you're just looking for touches, guaranteed touches. And if Isaiah Crowell's getting them, he's the type of player who, surprisingly, if he gets into the open field, he's kind of gone. So, I mean, you definitely want a guy who's getting 15 to 20 touches a week in your lineup.
One player that we all thought was going to be like that, Dalvin Cook, because he was before his injury last year, he's still not playing. He's going to be out until week 11 now, Tags?
The writing's been on the wall for Dalvin Cook because the thing is like he's been trying to come back to practice, then all of a sudden he's downgraded in practice as the week goes on. They rule him out, yada, 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 yada. And they just decided, you know what? I actually think this is the best thing the Vikings could have done because it gives them a chance, like it gives him a chance to say, you're not pressured to come back on the field. We're going to give you a couple weeks. So we're going to get Latavius Murray this week. We're going to get him next week. And then the bye week comes. So he's got, a good 3 weeks to get ready for.
Maybe he actually gets 100% before the playoffs.
That's basically what they're hoping. And I think he will be after the bye week. I think he'll be fine. But obviously, Latavius Murray has played himself into a timeshare. So Dalvin Cook has fallen outside of my top 24 running backs for the rest of the season.
Wow.
Especially knowing that he's going to miss the next 2 weeks.
I would still trade for him just because of the upside. I mean, you have no chance of getting an RB1 unless you trade for someone like Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette, who everyone's low on right now.
Yeah, Fournette is someone that I would actually potentially trade for, though, because I think people are worried about Carlos Hyde. They're worried about Yeldon and all that. But
what are they going to do? Are they going to stop Leonard Fournette from running the ball 15, 20 times because of Carlos Hyde? No.
No, what they're going to do is they're going to, like, literally when Fournette gets back, and I knew they would be keeping him out this week. It doesn't make sense to play him with their bye week next week, but once they come back in the bye, they are going to go, like, balls to the wall with Leonard Fournette and say, we're giving you as much as you can possibly handle.
They have to make the playoffs.
Yeah, we signed Carlos Hyde in order for insurance because we know we're going to push you. I think that's what's happening.
Yep, totally agree. All right, and Jack Doyle is probably going to play this week. What does that mean for Eric Ebron? Can we play both of them?
Man, it's really rough.
Not this week, right?
Yeah, they're against Oakland this week, and like Oakland, the thing is so many people are going to look at like fantasy points allowed to tight ends, and they're going to think Oakland's a bad matchup because I think they've allowed the 9th fewest or 10th fewest fantasy points per game, but it's been volume dependent because they've allowed a ton of fantasy points per target. I want to say that's the 3rd most in the NFL, so it's a good matchup. I have no issue starting. Obviously, Eric Ebron's going to be out there, but Jack Doyle coming off like a 4 or 5 week absence. I'm playing it like very safe with him. I would rather not play him, even if he is active for this game, but I think Eric Ebron is a top 5 play.
I've got Ebron as my number 5 tight end this week. Doyle, I think, is going to be a top 12 rest of the season tight end, but right now I've got him at like 22. So don't get too excited and start Doyle this week. Let's see what we have first.
Yeah, for sure. It's a hip injury, so you never know how those things are going to respond, So
I don't know if y'all know, but Tags and I have YouTube shows that we do live streams. Tags and I do one together on Tuesdays. I do one by myself on Thursdays, and Tags does one on Sunday mornings. And that's at youtube.com/fantasypros. So tomorrow I'm going to be answering start-sit questions. If you want to, you can go to youtube.com/fantasypros, and you can hit subscribe so that you can get a reminder when that show comes up so you can watch it. And by the way, we have a Michael Thomas signed jersey giveaway. We're picking a winner this week. All you have to do is go to that YouTube channel. Again, it's youtube.com/fantasypros. Hit subscribe, and then go to the contest, which is fantasypros.com/jersey-giveaway. And just to show that you subscribed, and we're going to be picking one lucky winner. Again, that ends this week, so make sure to get your entries in. By the way, Tex, we were doing our live stream yesterday, and somebody commented there in the chat that they won the contest that we were talking about on last week's show. 2 weeks ago, somebody won the big satellite to the live final out in New York City. It's like a $62,000 ticket. Well, I recommended another satellite contest last week, and Patrick there in the chat, congratulations to him again. He won this satellite, so we need to keep this streak going. I've got a satellite to talk about, the NBA Alley-Oop contest. So it's a satellite to an NBA contest. So if you're one of these people that plays 2-3 sports like I do on DFS, you can enter. It's $25 to enter. You've got a 1 in 70 shot at getting a $1,500 ticket to a contest with few entries and huge prizes. So let's keep the streak alive this week on FanDuel.com by winning another satellite. What do y'all say? You going to do this one, Tags? I'll help you with the NBA lineup. You win this, I'll pick your NBA lineup for you.
I was going to say, NBA is not my forte. I spend all my time watching football, and so basically when I get any time away from football, I just try and spend some time with the family.
I love NBA DFS because there's like not much volatility. Like football, it's good because you and I study it so much, and so anyone who listens to us, like you and I spend probably 40, 50 hours a week just studying it, let alone talking about it and writing it, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, we have the information to give, but in NBA, it's just like, what's going to happen pretty much every single night. Not everybody who plays does. So I think it's the easiest DFS sport to play.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people. So, I mean, it's a grind, though. You got to be in front of your computer at lock and all that stuff. So it's definitely different.
Yeah, Jim Sanis, who's come on the show, he would tell you NASCAR is the easiest to play, probably. Yeah. All right, man, let's get into the start sit. What do we do with Drew Brees this week? He's not really even playing in the red zone. I guess he did after Taysom Hill fumbled, but they're going up against Minnesota this week. I have him outside my top 12. I know ECR, which is the expert consensus ranking, has him at number 8. Where do you feel?
Yeah, so Brees is interesting, right? Like, because the thing is, Minnesota, outside of that one game against the Rams on Thursday night when they had to travel across the country, outside of that game, they've allowed 249 passing yards per game, 1 touchdown, and 1.2 interceptions. So they haven't been as bad as some people think. With that being said, they haven't faced much volume either against them. So, like, when you look at it, they've allowed I think it's the 3rd most yards per attempt to quarterbacks. So they've also been beat on deep plays too. There's been 30 passing plays that have gone over 20 yards against them. That's the third most in the NFL. So knowing that Drew Brees is one to take shots down the field at times if a defense allows it, this might be one of those matchups. I'm curious to see if Minnesota gets back Everson Griffin, because he's been cleared to play, to resume football duties, and they haven't been the same defense without him.
He's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, the thing is, I wonder, can the Saints really run the ball on Minnesota? And let's think about this.
We're talking about Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. Yes, they can run the ball against anybody.
But that's the thing is, like, so this game is in Minnesota, as was the game that they played in the playoffs against them. So I went back and looked at that game. Brees in that game threw 40 pass attempts, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. The running game didn't have anything really going. I think Kamara led the team with like 42 yards rushing, but they did get it done through the air. Like Kamara got some stuff done through the air. So I think they're going to have to rely on Brees to move the ball. I have him in like the low end QB1 range. I'm not like really confident about him. I'm struggling myself in some leagues where it's like when Brees was on a bye, I grabbed Jameis Winston. And I have both of them, and I'm struggling to decide which one I want to play, because Jameis's matchup against the Bengals is a relatively good one.
I would take Jameis for sure, not even close. And here's the reason why. We had the same exact situation last week at Baltimore, where Baltimore's great at stopping the run. They're good at stopping the pass, but great at stopping the run, just like Minnesota. He threw 30 passes for 212 yards. Washington, again, a pass funnel defense, 29 attempts. The previous week, 32 attempts. The Saints just don't pass the ball enough for me to go start Drew Brees against an elite secondary like the Vikings.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, like, they are elite in a certain way, but I don't want to say that they're like literally a defense you can't touch, because as I mentioned,
it's not like last year where they're the Jags or anything like that.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. So it's 8.24 yards per attempt to quarterbacks, which is the 5th highest in the NFL. So, like, their touchdown rate is only 4.6%, so they haven't allowed many touchdowns, but I know a lot of those stats came from that Rams game, so I don't want to think that it's like a great matchup for Drew Brees or anything, but I have Jameis in those lineups right now, but I've really been going back and forth on it.
Yeah, so we've got Jameis at number 9 on ECR. Right behind him is Andy Dalton. Again, I feel like every week tags we're talking about him here, but he has another great matchup, this time at home against the Bucs. I think is a start again.
Yeah, I think Andy Dalton is an absolute start this week. And I know the last week wasn't pretty against the Chiefs, and that was just, it was one game. I think Dalton actually said that after the game. He was like, yes, guys, it sucks, but it was still one game. They need to get back on track. They've been playing good at home this year. The Bucs defense, last week was the first time they didn't allow a quarterback to throw for more than 330 yards against them. Now, granted, Baker Mayfield still finishes a top 5 quarterback, so I wouldn't consider that a success for that defense. So, Andy Dalton, I mean, they don't have anybody to contend AJ Green. So AJ Green is going to match up with Carlton Davis, a rookie, a right cornerback, the majority of the time. And then they have Tyler Boyd matched up in the slot with MJ Stewart, who's another rookie. They just play sides. Brent Grimes doesn't move or anything like that. The matchups are just too good. CJ Uzomah, he's actually someone who has a phenomenal matchup too. So it's like when you look at all this stuff, you're like, wait a minute, why wouldn't we be playing Dalton? So I have him inside the top 10 quarterbacks this week, and I would not be afraid to start him.
Now right behind them is Deshaun Watson, and Watson's been kind of up and down this season. Obviously, he's got a lot of weapons. He's got his legs, but he's going up against the Dolphins secondary that a lot of people don't realize is actually really good.
Yeah, the Dolphins have been so much better than people have expected them to be. Like, Minkah Fitzpatrick has completely changed the look of that defense. They've allowed just one top 15 quarterback this year against them, and that was Mitch Trubisky in that game where the Bears had to come back, and he rushed for 47 yards, yeah, all that. But it's really not a good matchup for him, and knowing that Deshaun Watson, so not many people heard this story, but Watson had to take a 12-hour bus ride to their game in Jacksonville last week because they're worried about air pressure affecting his bruised lung and his injured ribs. People can talk about injuries all they want and like say, oh, maybe like Mariota, people talking about his elbow hurting him and affecting his play, even though he was good against the Eagles that one week. But this is something different. You don't have a player take a 12-hour bus ride when he could take a flight if he's not really hurt. We've seen it affect his numbers. We know that offensive line's not good. You can run on the Dolphins, so.
Man, they need to bench him. I would not mess around with your body that way.
No, that's terrible. He's on short rest playing on Thursday night. So since playing Marcus Mariota in week 1, Miami has allowed at least 7.8 yards per attempt to every quarterback, but the passing numbers aren't astronomical because they've only faced 33 pass attempts per game, which is the 10th lowest in the NFL. Watson's numbers have suffered. I have him as the QB 16 this week. I would rather start someone like Baker Mayfield.
Okay. Cam Newton is there against Buffalo, Mitch Trubisky against the Jets, Russell Wilson against Detroit. Would you start any of those guys over some of the guys we've talked about?
I would start Trubisky probably over Watson.
I've got Trubisky over Newton, Wilson, Watson, and Brees.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Mitch, man, the thing is his play has been so much worse than his numbers, but you can't ignore the numbers, and his rushing totals have been there.
Is he the best rushing quarterback in the NFL? I really think that he is.
He looks really good, man. And that's the thing, is just he's doing it very casually too. He doesn't look like he's going all out, but he's not someone who looks to run first either. He's always looking for the pass, and I'll give him credit for that. He's not one to quickly get to the back of his 5-step drop and then immediately run the ball. He's not that quarterback.
He's not like Kyler Murray in the open field, juking everybody out, but he's a smart runner and he's big. He's going to get his touchdowns. I love Mitch Trubisky, man. 43, 27, 31. Those are his fantasy points the last 3 weeks.
His fantasy numbers have been out of control. I do have him on the high-end QB2 radar, and I would start him over Deshaun Watson. Cam Newton is in that same territory, though, where it's he's got a tougher matchup against Baltimore. So I wouldn't fault anyone for starting Trubisky over Newton, but I have Newton just 2 spots higher.
Okay. What about Baker Mayfield? Anyone else further down the list? Carson Wentz against Jacksonville? Joe Flacco against Carolina, Matthew Stafford against the Seahawks. Any of those guys that you would consider a start?
Yeah, I mean, I like Stafford this week. I think that, so a lot of people are talking about Seattle and the fact that, they're a great defense. I know that they've only allowed 463 combined passing yards and 1 touchdown the last 2 games to Jared Goff and Derek Carr, but there were some factors that helped them in those.
The fact that the Raiders suck?
Well, that and the fact that Amari Cooper was hurt in the I think it was the end of the first quarter. The Rams were down Brandon Cooks and Cooper Kupp for half that game. Todd Gurley ran for I think 3 touchdowns against them. So it's I don't want to say that they're all of a sudden a good pass defense without Earl Thomas. So to know that they're coming into Detroit to play against Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, and Golden Tate, this is a real test for them. And Seattle has stopped the run pretty well. I don't love Kerryon Johnson this week like I did last week, so I think Stafford's got to get it done. I have him as my number 12 quarterback, and I also think that Russell Wilson's a solid play too. I think people have asked me if they should drop Russell Wilson, and I'm like,
I would.
No, the last 2 weeks he's looked phenomenal. I know he's not running the ball and stuff that, but he's only thrown 44 attempts the last 2 weeks.
That's the thing. That's horrible.
But 420 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's as efficient as they come. And if they're setting this up,
he's not even running the ball either, man.
But this is the thing. The Lions have allowed a 6.6% touchdown rate in coverage, which ranks as the 3rd worst in the NFL. So he could do the same exact thing this week.
He could. I'm not going to bet on a 9% touchdown rate.
Well, not 9, but I mean in between a 6 and 9. Russell Wilson, I think I actually have him as my number 11 quarterback, and I would debate starting him over Drew Brees.
All right, man. And same thing with Matt Stafford. He just hasn't been throwing the passes, so I'm not very excited about him. I would actually play Baker Mayfield over both of those guys as well. And if you're absolutely desperate, Case Keenum's not a bad play against Kansas City.
Oh, God, I can't play Keenum.
I mean, I don't want to play him. I just mentioned 15 guys I'd rather play over Keenum, but you know what I mean? If you have to stream somebody, if you're absolutely desperate, I would play Keenum over Alex Smith, Derek Carr, Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, CJ Beathard, Bortles.
Those are some ugly names too. But yeah, so the Chiefs defense has been a lot better recently. They've only allowed 3 passing touchdowns in their last 4 games, which did include Andy Dalton, Tom Brady. Keenum actually was in that conversation. Keenum at home against them only threw for 245 yards, no touchdowns. So I don't like Keenum.
Are they your Super Bowl favorite at this point, the Chiefs?
It's hard not to be, man, with that defense playing better than we expected.
Well, the Rams. Everyone is saying it's the Chiefs and the Rams as a lock.
I think the Rams, the Chargers and the Chiefs are the 3 teams that I would be paying attention to. Obviously you can't forget about the Patriots either, but
Patriots are my number 1. Eagles are still my number 2. Vikings are still my number 3. Then the Rams and then the Chiefs. Come at me.
Yeah.
I know that you Chiefs fans are super excited, and I know you Rams fans are super excited. McVay's amazing. He should be the league MVP. But those 3 teams, the Patriots, the Eagles, and the Vikings, they just have more talent than everybody else. They're toying around because they know they're going to make the playoffs. You don't have to try it.
I'm really interested to see like the playoff picture when it comes around. Like, man, it's gonna be fun for sure. There's a lot of parity in the NFL right now.
All right, man, let's move on over to running back. And a lot of people have been asking about James White, Marlon Mack every single week. Guys, these are top 10 running backs this week. You have to start them. You start them over Christian McCaffrey. You start them over Nick Chubb. You start them over Mark Ingram, Jordan Howard. It's not even close. Start James White and Marlon Mack, please.
Yeah, I have James White as my number 6 running back this week.
Same with Phillip Lindsay. He's the number 11 running back in ECR this week against Kansas City. He's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think that Royce Freeman's playing. I know he said he wants to play, but I don't think he's playing, and I have Phillip Lindsay at number 10.
All right, so what about these guys here on the 14 to 16 range? Adrian Peterson, Jordan Howard, who's losing a bunch of touches to Cohen, and then Cohen.
I love Peterson this week, especially since the Giants traded away Damon Harrison, their run stuffer up the middle. Like, they have some depth at defensive tackle, which allowed them to make this move. Like, BJ Hill is going to play a bigger role now, but it's still a downgrade for that defense for sure. Like, according to PFF's grades, Damon Harrison is ranked as the number 1 run-stopping defensive tackle over the last 5 years.
What a great trade for the Lions, because that's exactly what they needed.
Yeah, every single year. Yeah, the Lions had allowed over 6 yards per carry this year. Like, it was ridiculous what they were allowing on the ground. So it was a great trade for them. I don't know how the Lions gave up just a 5th-round pick for him. Like, it makes zero sense. I understand the contract, getting it off the books and all that, but I figured they could have gotten more for him. But Peterson walking into that situation, it wasn't a bad matchup to begin with. He's a guy that's getting 15 to 20 touches a game. He's getting all goal line work. So
I'm not messing with Todd Gurley at $11,000 this week on FanDuel. I'm all about Adrian Peterson.
I'm never going to fade Todd Gurley. Like, you'll never get me to fade Todd Gurley again. I'm playing him in cash every single week until he proves me wrong, because that man is out to set records. Like, and he's going to break the record. I believe that he will, because Sean McVay has shown it. Like, they were up multiple touchdowns last week, and then he came in the 4th quarter to score his 3rd touchdown.
You require 28 fantasy points from him.
Yeah.
He's done that 3 times this season.
Well, I don't know on FanDuel. I mean, I don't know if that one's like a 3X or anything like that, but yeah, and on DraftKings, he's hitting his point total every single week.
Okay. I mean, if you want to bet on 3 touchdowns, man, be my guest.
I think he's scoring 2 touchdowns like every single week. Like, seriously, I am not fading Todd Gurley like ever. We'll talk about it tomorrow on the DFS show.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Adrian Peterson, I'm definitely playing. Someone like Jordan Howard is interesting, right? And he's going to be difficult for people to gauge, but I still have him as a top 15 running back because of all the uncertainty around every other running back. Like,
it's a horrible week for running backs. Like, we have to start Jordan Howard. We really do. I've got him in my top 15, and I don't like it, but you start him.
Yeah, like, think about it. Kerryon Johnson against Seattle, that's not a good matchup. As much as people love Kerryon Johnson right now, it's not a good matchup at all. Mark Ingram against Minnesota, in Minnesota, not a good matchup. You have Nick Chubb at Pittsburgh. I understand that there's always a chance at a touchdown there, but the game script does not favor his role. He doesn't do much work in the passing game. In Pittsburgh's favored by 8 points. So, like, you're relying on a goal line plunge from him. That's what you're relying on. Lamar Miller is a guy that I like him as a play this week. Like, I'm going to recommend him as a start, but do I trust him over Jordan Howard? I can't do that. Like, Latavius Murray versus New Orleans, who has allowed the fewest rushing yards in the NFL. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many bad matchups this week that Jordan Howard is kind of like an RB2 by default.
There's a couple other running backs here that we have to talk about. Chris Carson against Detroit. It's a good matchup, but Harrison's there. I don't know if he makes an impact right away, but I think Carson's going to get enough touches that I've got him in my top 20. Latavius Murray faced the Saints. I don't know if you know this, guys, but the Saints have a really good run defense, like super good run defense.
Yep, they've allowed 286 yards the year. They have allowed 2.75 yards per carry.
That's stupid good.
Yeah, the closest team is the Texans, who have allowed 3.34 yards per carry. So they're allowing 0.6 yards per carry less than the next closest team. It's ridiculous how good they've been against the run, and people are overlooking that. Don't be one of those people that overlook it. Latavius Murray, he's not a great play this week. Again, he is another running back who gets all goal line touches, so you have to consider him as like a low-end RB2, high-end 3, but he's not going to win you a tournament this week.
Agree. By the way, I forgot to mention the Saints when I said my top Super Bowl contenders. They definitely belong in the conversation with that defense.
Oh, yeah. They just traded for Eli Apple, too.
Yes.
He's not great, but he's going to help improve that defense.
I don't think he can be great. I think he can be really good. He's just got one weakness, and it's fixable. He's really talented.
Yeah, no, he was a first-round draft pick for a reason. The Giants did reach for him, to be fair. Like, it was a terrible draft pick when they made it, but he should be fine. He should be competent, a lot better than Ken Crawley's been. But so Chris Carson is the one that I want to go back to, because do you think there's any possibility that the Seahawks during the bye week have decided that we need to get Rashaad Penny the ball more?
No. I mean, there's a possibility because it's Pete Carroll, but Why would you? Chris Carson's been good, man.
No, he has been good, but he's also seen declining touches as the weeks have gone on. He went from like that 34 touch game.
32, 19, 14, you're right.
Exactly. They're declining. And then we saw Rashaad Penny get 11 touches in their game in London. So I don't know, man. It's one of those things like Carson, I have him at 25, so I don't think he's like the worst play ever. But adding Harrison to that defense in Detroit, it does worry me. Like, he's going to be, I don't think that he's going to be a full-time player just yet, but I think they are going to try and stick him in there because they need help, like, immediately.
I'll let you know this. 25 is the lowest any expert has Chris Carson this week. So you're at the very bottom.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It makes sense. And like, I gave in and I actually played him in cash in week 6. And I like literally wanted to throw up as I was watching that game. It was terrible. And to see him get 14 touches, like fortunately I had Todd Gurley in that lineup too. So it all worked out. But yeah, Chris Carson, I've just learned my lesson with Seattle running backs and I don't want to trust them too much. Like, I can understand the argument to play him over someone like Raheem Mostert. But the thing is, Mostert has a better matchup, I think.
I was just about to say, I've got 3 names, and I would not play any of them ahead of Raheem Mostert. Okay, you've got Alex Collins at Carolina, Kenyon Drake at Houston, TJ Yeldon face Philadelphia. I'd play Mostert over all of them.
I wouldn't play him over Drake, I don't think. So the reason is not because Drake's going to get it done on the ground against Houston. I just mentioned that they're the second in the league in terms of yards per carry against them.
Yeah, he's going to get like 6 carries too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like the carries, I don't even care about the carries. If Kenyon Drake walks away from this game with like 3 carries, I can care less. I want the targets. He has seen 25 targets over the last 3 games. And over the last, in that time span that I'm talking about, he has seen a combined 16.7 targets/carries per game. So knowing that Brock Osweiler is limited now, like in terms of like his options to throw to, he's been relying on Drake. He's been relying on guys after the catch. That's why Kenny Stills hasn't been a big part of the game plan. That's why Albert Wilson was doing great. Danny Amendola has done well. They have Devontae Parker, who's going to be active for this game because they need him to be. But I'm looking at guys like Jakeem Grant, who's going to make some impact in this game, and guys like Kenyon Drake because he's going to be used as like a wide receiver. So I think the targets are going to be there, similar to someone like Jalen Richard. So I'll take Drake because I know he's going to get playing time and Frank Gore is not going to be able to run against this Houston defense. Collins is interesting. Like that's one that I would seriously go back and forth and debate whether I wanted to start Mostert or Alex Collins.
By the way, Drake is averaging over 90 yards per game over the past 3 games.
Yeah, no, he's been a lot better. And like I said, he's averaged 16.7 combined targets and carries. So he's starting to get opportunity and he's been producing.
What about Yeldon? I've got him right now as my RB 31. Mm-hmm. ECR has him at 24 though.
Yeah, I don't love Yeldon. I have him down to 26. And honestly, if someone wanted to drop him lower, I wouldn't argue with them. Philadelphia is not a team you could run the ball on. They went out and got Carlos Hyde for whatever reason. And now he's going to be the one who's going to start this game. Like Carlos Hyde's going to start. TJ Yeldon's going to mix it on 3rd downs, which is...
Yeah, Hyde's ECR 34 and Yeldon's 24. Is it just because they're expecting Yeldon to get the passes?
That's basically what it is. I have Hyde down at 36. So I think Hyde is like an absolute sit. Like even if you have him on your team, like don't play him this week against Philly. The Philly doesn't allow anything against the run. The only guy who totaled anything on the ground against them was Saquon Barkley, and he's a freak. Carlos Hyde has nothing in common with Saquon Barkley.
Did you see that play where he fell down?
Oh, yeah.
And where everybody else in the history of the NFL, and I mean that, would have just been down because there was no chance of anyone getting yards. He got up and ran for another like 8 carries and mashed into somebody. That dude every single week does something I've never seen before.
That kid wants to be great. And that's the thing is like
he's already the best running back in the NFL.
And there's been interviews where he's like, yeah, I know that people are talking about my numbers. He's like, but I know I can do better. And like, he's a guy that like, he literally leaves it all on the field. I love watching Saquon Barkley play football. It stinks that he's on that team because it's like his talent's going to go to waste and they're now clearly in rebuild mode. But he's so fun to watch. But yeah, TJ Yeldon, I have him higher than Hyde because I do expect him to be used in the passing game. I don't think Blake Bortles takes many chances in this game, knowing that he can get benched at any time. So I think there will be checkdowns to Yeldon and D.D. Westbrook over the middle of the field. So I have Yeldon at 26, but I'm not really excited about him.
Did you see that retweet that I had about Barry Sanders? His 1988 college stats?
Oh, yeah, that was ridiculous.
Oh, man. I just want to tell you guys, 2,800 yards rushing, 42 touchdowns in 12 games. And he didn't even play the 4th quarter in any of those because they were just blowing people. He was the greatest college running back ever.
He might be the greatest NFL running back of all time. And I know, like, I'm from Chicago, so I know a lot of people say Walter Payton and Jim Brown. Those guys are in the conversation too.
Can you imagine if Barry Sanders was on those teams instead of those guys?
That's the thing is Barry Sanders, just like Saquon Barkley, was on some terrible football teams.
Man, he was really something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's keep moving with the running backs, then we'll move on over to wide receiver. And there's not too many more to talk about. Doug Martin, Jalen Richard, I've got them both RB2s this week. I've got Jalen Richard 22, Doug Martin 24.
I have Rashaad at 22 as well. Love it. He's been a poor man's Christian McCaffrey. And it's kind of like you look at it, like there have been 4 different running backs who have played against the Colts and caught 5+ passes, including James White, who had 10 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. And Chris Thompson had 13 catches for 92 yards. So they are a team that you can pass on to running backs. And I'm sure the Colts are more than happy to let them dump down continually to Jalen Richard. You want to know a fun stat that I found, Bobby, while researching the Raiders game this week?
Of course, I love fun stats.
Derek Carr, okay, he passed for, I think it was 154 yards against the Seahawks in London. How many of those yards do you think came after the catch?
I think you said this, or if you didn't say it, I saw it somewhere. You said 154 yards total?
Mm-hmm.
156 after the catch.
It was like 153. I think it was 1 yard that he had that was through the air. And now with Amari Cooper gone, that's not going to change very much. He's going to take shots down the field to Martavis Bryant, I'm sure. But Jalen Richard is a fantastic play. I think he's a low-end RB2 in standard, and I think he's an awesome RB2 play in PPR formats.
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you, over-under 5.5 receptions.
Over.
Yep. Anytime you can get someone with an over-under that high in receptions, that's a wide receiver, you start them. Yeah. And we're talking about a running back who's going to get a handful of carries too.
Doug Martin is like someone who's like game script proof, where it's like same thing with Marshawn Lynch, where Lynch had played just a couple fourth quarter snaps through the season. But Doug Martin, he's going to get some carries in the beginning of the game, and it's tough to say that he's not going to see less than like 12 carries. So he's in the RB3 range because he's guaranteed touches, but he's not sexy at all.
Yeah, if he wasn't against Indianapolis, I wouldn't have him 24, but he is against Indianapolis, so I do have him 24.
Indianapolis has been pretty good with Darius Leonard and Anthony Walker on the field. Those two missed some time, and they struggled a little bit during that time, but with those guys in the field, they've been a lot better. So, I mean, Doug Martin hasn't shown me anything. Like, I would struggle, like, if you own Aaron Jones and Doug Martin, which one would you play?
Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones even against the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I don't want to say I love Aaron Jones because, like, we all know the potential, right? But he's going against the Rams, which is a really tough matchup. And on top of that, he's getting one more touch per game than Jamal Williams over the last 3 weeks. Like, that's it.
Coming off the bye, I think Aaron Jones is going to get more work. Otherwise, Aaron Rodgers is going to, like, leave the Packers.
I wish that would have been the case. Get him out of the NFC North.
Can you imagine if something like that happened? Like, the greatest quarterback of all time just gets up and leaves?
It wouldn't happen.
I mean, it would never happen. There's no way he's ever leaving the Packers, but it would just be, oh man, it would be so much fun.
No, like, Mike McCarthy needs to walk.
He does. Aaron Rodgers needs to say that Mike McCarthy needs to walk, because if he says it, it will happen.
That would be great.
All right, a couple other guys. I'm not really that interested in them, but people are going to have questions about Wendell Smallwood, Corey Clement, Chris Ivory, especially if LaShawn McCoy is out. That's an interesting one against the Patriots. I would start him. And then Duke Johnson at Pittsburgh. Maybe Peyton Barber at Cincinnati. Do you like any of these guys?
I actually have Kenjon Barner ahead of all those guys. I have him at 29, so it's not like a great start, but he's someone that's going to get carries. Like even against the Bears last week, James White had 11 carries. He had 10. He's not involved in the passing game, but they're 2 touchdown favorites, so he doesn't need to be to have some sort of value. So I have him, and then I have Corey Clement, Chris Ivory, Wendell Smallwood in that order. Don't feel great about starting any of those guys. And Duke Johnson, I mean, last week was kind of like the do or die for me with him, and to know that they didn't use him really at all. He played the same exact amount of snaps, like nothing changed. The game script should favor him in this game, but I've kind of given up like being hopeful with him, so I have him down at 34.
Yeah, I've actually got Peyton Barber a little bit higher. I know he's been losing some work, but they're going up against Cincinnati. I know Burfict's back, but their run defense still isn't very good. So Nyheim Hines is an interesting one to me too against Oakland. I think everyone's forgot about him because Marlon Mack just came in and took all the air out of the room, but Nyheim Hines is still a quality pass catcher.
Well, real quick, just so you know, Peyton Barber, it just came out, he missed practice today. So I think they're moving forward with Ronald Jones. I think this is where it starts. Cincinnati has been a terrible run defense. Vontaze Burfict hasn't been good since he's come back. They're missing Nick Vigil, one of their linebacker who's playing really well early in the season. Sean Williams, their safety, was out last week with a concussion. Like that defense is in like some serious doo-doo. So Ronald Jones, I think, is creeping into that RB3 territory where I would consider him over someone like maybe Corey Clement.
Wow. Okay. All right, let's move on over to wide receiver tags. Is there anyone that you would not play this week, like maybe Alshon against Jacksonville?
I'm not sitting Alshon with the way he's playing right now.
I wouldn't sit him if he was being covered by Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye with the way he's playing right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a week to temper expectations, and he's someone that I would definitely not play in DFS. But I mean, I have him in like the high end wide receiver 3 territory where he's just tough to sit, man. Like, he's playing out of his freaking mind. I will be on record as to say that it wouldn't shock me if Nelson Aguilar outproduces him this week, because Aguilar's matchup is really good. But I couldn't sit Jeffrey. I just can't. One player that I would sit, though, in that a lot of people feel like is an every week start at this point, and that's Devin Funchess.
Me too. Yep.
Yeah, I don't like him against Baltimore. Brandon Carr and Jimmy Smith, 2 of the better man coverage cornerbacks in the league. Smith struggled with Michael Thomas last week. I mean, who doesn't? But like, these guys have legitimately shut down wide receivers. They haven't allowed a perimeter wide receiver more than 11.9 PPR points outside of Michael Thomas, AJ Green, and Antonio Brown, which are 3 of the top 5 wide receivers in the game.
It's really good. Yeah, I've got Funchess outside my top 45 wide receivers. And I know that's a little bit low compared to where the rest of the industry has them. ECR has them at 31, but I would not play Funchess. Some guys I would play ahead of him. I would play Sammy Watkins, face Denver ahead of him. Taylor Gabriel against the Jets. Jordy Nelson in the absence of Amari Cooper now against the Colts. What do you think about those 3 guys?
I'm not a big fan of Jordy. I just think he's boring. Like, I have him right next to Funchess in the rankings, so I'm not like excited about either of those guys. Like, Jordy, so the thing is like Jordy, his productive days that came with the Raiders were when he was playing in the slot when Seth Roberts was out. Now that they've traded Cooper, they've lost a movable chess piece. So basically, Seth Roberts is a slot-only wide receiver. Like, he doesn't play on the perimeter, which means that Jordy Nelson and Martavis Bryant are going to be kind of stuck where they are, and they'll play maybe 15 to 20% of their snaps in the slot. He just can't get separation at this point in his career. So I'm not like in love with Jordy, but Taylor Gabriel's an awesome play. I don't think that Allen Robinson's going to play this week, and some people have told me that it's too early to say that, but knowing that he missed the final drive against the Patriots in such a close game, even watching Robinson throughout that game, he was like ailing. He wasn't running routes like he typically does. It's this whole soft tissue injury thing. Like, teams need to learn, give the man a break. I think they could beat the Jets without Allen Robinson this week. And we knew last week would be tough against Jason McCourty, but looking at, the cornerbacks for the Jets, Morris Claiborne and Darryl Roberts, neither of them have the speed to hang with someone like Taylor Gabriel, and their free safety, Marcus May, is likely out for this game. So that would give him plenty of opportunity. Prior to that Patriots game, he had averaged 7.3 targets on the last 4 games. I think Gabriel, I actually have him as my number 25 receiver right now.
Ooh, man, that is up there. Taylor Gabriel is ECR number 35. I just don't like that he's only got 9 targets in the last 2 games. I thought he was going to be getting more targets after that big explosion. And maybe he will with Allen Robinson out, but I don't quite have him that high. He is a start for me. A couple other guys who are starts, Chris Godwin at Cincinnati. I would start Geronimo Allison. I don't know why he's down at 38. I've got him in my top 30 every week.
Yeah. I have no idea why Geronimo Allison continues to find his way like out of lineups and on the waiver wire. Like, here's a few players who Allison has scored more PPR points than this year. Jarvis Landry, Brandon Cooks, Keenan Allen, Will Fuller, and Demaryius Thomas. Like, there's just 23 players. He's 24th in PPR points per game. So why are we like dropping this guy and like thinking that he's like a questionable play? I love this.
He's the number 2 receiver.
Yeah.
On Aaron Rodgers' team.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously want to make sure he practices because that's like a big deal, but this is the biggest underdog that Aaron Rodgers has ever been in a football game. He's getting 9 points. You know that they're relying on the pass in this game. And honestly, if I was a betting man, which I can't, I'm in Illinois. I've never bet on a football game, but if I were to bet in a football game, I would bet the Packers getting 9 points in this game because
I'd bet on them winning outright.
I think it's possible that they can because this Rams defense is not all that and then some. I know they look good against the 49ers last week, but they're not that good. I'm telling you, Rodgers will be able to escape some pressure, and those cornerbacks there are not good. They benched Nickel Roby Coleman last week, and I have no idea why. There has been no injury reported. So if they leave Sam Shields and Troy Hill out there, they're going to get burned all day by Geronimo Allison, Devontae Adams. Yeah.
Hey, just so you guys know, I was not saying if it was like 50-50, I would bet on them winning outright. I'm saying with the odds, I would take that one.
Yeah, no, getting 9 points is just crazy. Like, Aaron Rodgers should never be a 9-point underdog.
Yep, totally agree. All right, Traquan Smith, even against the Vikings, what do you think, Tags?
I have him as a sit.
Okay.
I obviously was one telling people that they should go out there and grab him off the waiver wire. But, like as I mentioned, the Vikings, they've only allowed 6 wide receiver touchdowns, and 2 of them came to non-Rams receivers. Like, so think about it. Outside of that Thursday night game where they got like legitimately murdered by the Rams offense. They've allowed 2 wide receiver touchdowns. It's just tough, man. Trey Waynes is playing pretty well. That's who Traquan is going to see the majority of the time. I just don't think that the Saints are going to score more than maybe 2 touchdowns through the air. Do we think that Traquan Smith is going to score over Michael Thomas, over Alvin Kamara, and guys like that? I have him at 41, so I don't think he's like a terrible start, but he's very risky as a wide receiver 4.
I've got him at 42, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
ECR has him at 42 as well, but with the way the passing has been going in the NFL this year, I think that in your flex, you almost definitely start a wide receiver unless you've got 3 great running backs. So
yeah.
I do have 42 as a start, but barely in 12-team leagues. What about a couple other guys, Tags? Is there anyone that would surprise me that you're starting?
I mean, Nelson Aguilar hasn't been very good this season, so he's definitely someone that I think people would be surprised that I'm recommending as a start. But the Jags have really struggled. I mean, they allowed 101 yards, 9 catches, and 2 touchdowns to Cole Beasley. Then you had Kiki QT go down early with a hamstring injury last week. But Tyler Patman has been covering the slot while DJ Hayden has been out. And even while he's been playing, he's allowed 11 of 14 passing for 114 yards in his coverage. So he hasn't been lights out or anything like that. Knowing that Alshon's going to have Jalen Ramsey all in his grill, knowing that Jacksonville stops tight ends like on the regular, I just think it's a tough matchup for so many people that Nelson Aguilar has to step up.
I'd play Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
No, if Randall Cobb comes back.
Yeah, if Cobb is out.
I think Cobb comes back this week. They're expected to practice with the team today, from what I understand. One player that I think is like an off-the-wall start is Anthony Miller. I've mentioned that Allen Robinson, I don't think he's going to play. But looking at the Jets, we've talked about them every single week, guys. Like talking about like attack the slot there. I said the same thing with Miller last week against the Patriots. And if you watch that game, I know he walked away with just 35 yards. But seriously, Miller had beaten Jonathan Jones multiple times. Trubisky was just off. He couldn't hit a target to save his life. Miller had Jonathan Jones beat for, it was like a 40-plus yard touchdown, ended up getting intercepted because it was underthrown by 5 yards. But this week, it's like, with Buster Skrine or Perry Nickerson covering him, those two combined, they've combined to allow 44 of 57 passing for 532 yards and 3 touchdowns. Even if Robinson plays, I think Miller needs to be heavily involved in the game plan. He saw 7 targets last week. I know Trubisky was off, but I think like if you're looking for an emergency option for someone, like if you have bye week issues, you're just like, Mike, there's nobody on the waiver wire. Anthony Miller probably is because he's available in like over 90% of the leagues. I think he's an interesting play this week.
All right, let me give you 3 names. You tell me which one you would start. Christian Kirk faced San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Dante Moncrief faced Philadelphia, or Cortland Sutton at Kansas City.
I'll take Christian Kirk. San Francisco, like last week, Richard Sherman missed that game, and reportedly he's like someone that is at the risk of being shut down right now because apparently he's been dealing with a calf issue that they say has been getting worse as the season's gone on, and he was a surprise inactive on Sunday. I don't think he plays this game.
Even when he does play, he hasn't been that effective because he's clearly slowed down by it.
Well, the thing is, teams haven't really targeted him. Like, he's one of the least targeted cornerbacks in the game, so teams have actually just stayed away from him. Christian Kirk beat this defense with Richard Sherman on it, with Adrian Colbert, who is now out for the year, I think, with them for a 75-yard touchdown on the first play of the game in week 5. So it's obviously a matchup that he would benefit from, and he's the one who stretches the field for them because Larry Fitzgerald's just not going to do that. I'm curious. There's a little risk in Christian Kirk this week because they do have a new offensive coordinator. We have no idea how he's going to design plays, but we do know that Josh Rosen does prefer Christian Kirk. So I have him at 42. I have Moncrief at 49. Yeah, so I would definitely say it's Kirk.
All right, let's go tight end, and then we'll go DST after that. Then Tags and I will do some fact or fiction, just kind of off the cuff. Okay, so there's the obvious starts, Kelsey, Ertz, Kittle, Ebron, and Njoku. Mm-hmm. After that, Jared Cook against Indianapolis. He hasn't been very good lately, but now that Cooper is gone, is he a must start?
I believe so. It's like, we talked about with running backs where it's like once you get to a point, you have to just look for touches, right? And at tight end, you have to look for targets. And Jared Cook has been one to see them. And knowing that Jordy Nelson can't separate, knowing that Seth Roberts isn't very good, I think Jared Cook's a fine play. I have him at number 8, so I'm not like super high on him. One player that I would start over him, though, CJ Uzomah.
Great matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why people are worried about him. He now has an 89.5% catch rate, so him and Dalton are clearly on the same page. The Bucks have allowed a top 12 tight end in every single game they've played, including 5 15-plus PPR point performances. That's hard to do, even if you're doing it on purpose. Like, it's seriously, I mean, the thing is, once Tyler Eifert went down, Uzomah has now been the number 10 tight end in that time. And this is the best matchup that you could possibly have. I have him as my number 7 tight end, and I would start him over someone like Jared Cook. I'd start him over Trey Burton. I'd start him over O.J. Howard.
No, you wouldn't start him over O.J. Howard. Are you serious?
I am starting him everywhere.
I'm not. Well, I mean, I'm starting him everywhere, but I'm not starting him over O.J. Howard, dude. O.J. Howard's been the number 3 fantasy football tight end in games that he started.
Yeah, O.J. Howard is really good. I'm not saying that he's not. The matchup against the Bucs is just too good to pass up. It's just like a sure thing. It's like
the matchup against the Bengals is really good too.
Yeah, the Bengals haven't been very good against tight ends either. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's a bad play because he's not. But because the Bengals are the 5th worst against tight ends, so it's not a bad matchup at all. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I should move O.J. Howard up a little bit, but I think Uzomah is an awesome play.
Okay, a couple other guys. Jimmy Graham against the Rams. I think he's a start. Trey Burton faced the Jets. Stop me if you disagree. He's a start. Jordan Reed against the Giants. I've still got him in my top 10 as well.
I have him at number 12. I mean, the process on him has been right. Like, that's the thing is, like, I'm so mad about because, like, everything that you're supposed to research and everything that you're supposed to do and you look up, it tells you that Jordan Reed should be getting targets and that he should be productive. He just hasn't been. Eventually that's going to come through. I don't know, man. I have Jimmy Graham as my number 4 tight end, and I might move him up to number 3. I think he's an awesome play. The Rams have really struggled when they've been targeted. There's only been a couple tight ends who have been targeted heavily against them. One of them was obviously Jared Cook when he caught, 180 yards against them in week 1. And then there was another week where they allowed a bigger performance. I think it was to George Kittle. So, yeah, Jimmy Graham's an awesome play. The touchdowns are going to start following soon. Someone I have on the borderline that I can't believe I'm even thinking about it, but Greg Olsen, I don't think he's a bad play.
Greg Olsen, are you serious?
Yeah, I know.
Last week you're telling me he's like the 50th best tight end in the world. And now you're going to play Greg Olsen against the Ravens?
Well, so the thing, it's kind of like last week, right? Where like there's so many things going on with offenses that sometimes tight ends get overlooked. And I think the Ravens are guilty of that at times. They haven't played really good competition. The best tight end they've played was David Njoku, who, he posted 6 catches for 69 yards against them, finishes at tight end 10. And then Ben Watson last week, 6 catches, 43 yards and a touchdown. We know that Funchess is going to match up with Jimmy Smith and Brandon Carr, right? So that he's essentially eliminated. We know that Torrey Smith is dinged up and he might not even play. Like Christian McCaffrey, the Ravens haven't been really kind to running backs. I mean, Alvin Kamara was the first running back to finish his top 24 in PPR. So Christian McCaffrey is not going to be a great play.
And he's hardly a running back.
Yeah, so when you look at it, the Ravens have allowed 8.0 yards per target to tight ends, which is the 13th most in the league, despite not playing elite competition. So I think Greg Olsen is I think he's a streamer worthy tight end this week.
So Rob Gronkowski, we know he's doing with the back spasms, maybe even something else that they haven't really told us about. He missed practice on Wednesday, but let's say he's active. Do you start him?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I think I would rather play Uzomah than Gronkowski, and you can pick up Uzomah.
When writing the primer, it's difficult because that's going to come out tomorrow morning, and I have no idea if Gronk's going to play. So some people are going to ask because we're not going to know because they don't play until Monday night. If you have Uzomah, I would play him over Gronk if we don't have any concrete word that Gronk is playing. If Gronkowski plays, it's going to be really tough to sit him. And I understand, people are well, Mike, he hasn't done much this year, and the Bills have been good against tight ends. But if you go and look, it's the same defense. It's the same safety duo that they had last year. Gronkowski in 2 games against them, he posted 11 catches for 147 yards in the first meeting, and then 7 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown in the second meeting. So
that's good.
I mean, it's so tough. I can't ever recommend sitting Gronk if he's going to play, but if we don't have concrete evidence that he is going to play, I would play obviously the obvious ones over him, and I would play Uzomah, I'd play Cook, I'd play Burton, and I'd play Howard over him.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you 5 tight ends. Let's say that you are desperate. Your tight end is on a bye this week, and you have to pick somebody up to play. Are you picking up Vance McDonald against Cleveland, Evan Ingram face Washington, Benjamin Watson at the Vikings, Ricky Seals-Jones face the 49ers, or Charles Clay against the Patriots? I
have Vance McDonald the highest here.
Me too.
Yeah, some people are still worried about Jesse James, but I mean, McDonald has played 64.8% of the snaps, and he's ran 33 more routes than Jesse James over the last 3 weeks. So he's clearly the number 1 tight end play there. He obviously comes with some risk, but what tight end doesn't, right? I mean, let's not pretend that Greg Olsen, Jordan Reed, even Rob Gronkowski, all these guys, they all come with risk, right? But the upside, I mean, he's totaled at least 62 yards in 3 of the last 4 games, which is most definitely tight end 1 territory. And Cleveland, I mean, they were terrible against tight ends the last few years. The defensive coordinator is still the same. They've shuffled some things around. They moved Demarius Randall down to cornerback last week, so they could regress. I'm not going to say, I mean, it's really tough to say, but I do know that Pittsburgh at home with Ben Roethlisberger, he's going to score points, and Vance McDonald is obviously one of those guys. So, I mean, I'll take a tight end that's part of a high-scoring offense any day.
So everyone knows the Patriots are by far the best streaming option. In fact, they're probably the best defense special teams option of anyone this week against Buffalo. You've got Philadelphia, who's a good stream against Jacksonville. Pittsburgh against Cleveland. I think all 3 of those are obvious because ECR has them in the top 5. But after that, who do you go with? Indianapolis, Washington against the Giants, Arizona against San Francisco against Arizona?
Yeah, I'm going Arizona for sure. Arizona against San Francisco. I'm playing that. I played Arizona when they went to San Francisco the last time, and that really worked out for me. San Francisco, the offensive line crumbled a little bit last week against the Rams. Arizona does bring the pressure. Like, if there's a way to attack Arizona, it's on the ground, and I'm not really worried about that hurting my fantasy defense. So, I mean, Patrick Peterson is there. He's not going anywhere. He put out a statement saying that he is going to be an Arizona Cardinal, and he wants to be part of the turnaround or whatever. I think it's because no teams have enough equity to give up what the Cardinals wanted for him. So I do think that this defense kind of comes together. I think they play well at home off of that terrible Thursday night loss. So I think the Cardinals are an awesome streamer.
I don't like the 49ers or Colts at all. I don't want to play them against anyone except for like maybe Buffalo. I'm looking at these 2 teams, right? And the Colts are ECR number 7. San Francisco is ECR number 11. They're just so bad. How can you play them even over like Cincinnati faced Tampa? The Rams against Green Bay, I would play over them. ECR's got them at 15. The Jets, even against Mitch Trubisky. I mean, Trubisky's turnover problem, right? You wouldn't play the Colts or the 49ers, would you?
I would play the Colts. So the Colts defense is like, they're better than people gave them credit for, and they're doing well. Like, Frank Reich is doing a good job with that team.
They were great against the Bills, but the previous 3 weeks, 37 points allowed, 38 points allowed, 42 points allowed. They got destroyed by the Bengals, too, earlier in the season.
No, they did, but they're still scoring fantasy points though. Well, not every single week. They struggled against New England, and that's obviously anybody's going to struggle against New England. But they, in every other game, they've had at least 2 sacks. They've had at least 1 turnover in every single game, multiple turnovers, and I think 4 of 7 games. And the thing is Oakland is no longer a tough match. Their tackles are not playing well. Derek Carr is not being protected. Over the last 4 games against Oakland, they've now allowed 15 sacks. Derek Carr's been picked off 5 times in those games. They've had 3 fumbles. There's so many things that are wrong with Oakland, and now living life without Amari Cooper and Marshawn Lynch, you literally just took away the 2 best players in that team. So I have no issue with the Colts. I know that the game is on the road, and I mean, ideally your streamer is at home, but I actually think the Colts are a good play.
Nobody's going to play Denver against Kansas City, and so I think a lot of people are going to drop them. If you've got an extra roster spot, you're not like clouded by buys this week, I would pick up Denver because they're going to be the top DST next week. And, you know, rather than spend $5-10 fab bucks on the top DST, might as well just use a roster spot this week.
Yeah, that's probably a good call.
All right, man, let's move on over to fact or fiction. Do you have one in mind?
All right, so my first fact or fiction is Marlon Mack finishes the rest of the season as a top 12 running back.
Top 12's pushing it. Right now I've got him ranked at RB 16. And so it's a possibility. It definitely is. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up in the top 7 running backs the rest of the season. But I think the median possible outcome is that he finishes outside the top 12. What do you think?
Yeah, I have him at number 18, so I'm definitely with you on that. I think some people are like legitimately losing their mind for Marlon Mack. And I mean, it's been fun to watch in the last couple weeks. He looked good against the Jets, even though the fantasy results weren't like crazy good. But last week obviously has so many people like, ooh, should I trade away, James White to get Marlon Mack? No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't trade away. I wouldn't even trade away Tevin Coleman to get him. So I just think Tevin Coleman's part of a better, I don't want to say better overall offense, but he's behind a better offensive line, even though the Falcons did just lose another offensive lineman. So I probably need to move Tevin Coleman down a little bit now that I'm talking about it. But I think he belongs in the conversation with guys like Nick Chubb and Kerryon Johnson.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. All right, fact or fiction. All 3 of these teams that are currently outside the playoffs, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Atlanta Falcons, all missed the playoffs.
Whew. I'll say fiction.
Who's gonna make it? I don't feel good about any of them. I love the Eagles' upside, obviously, now that they're healthy. Wentz is back. Alshon Jeffrey's back. But they haven't been playing good football. It's a tough go right now.
I still think that the Eagles are definitely going to make the playoffs. And I would also say the same for the Jags because they play in divisions that are not very good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Washington's going to beat Philly. I don't think the Jags are going to lose to Houston, so I would agree with those two.
Yeah, and that's basically where I'm at with it, and that's why I would say that. But, I mean, it was funny, I was watching Good Morning Football this morning, and they were talking about that, saying whoever loses the game in London between the Eagles and Jags is basically done. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I am worried about Jacksonville's defense, though, man. They have not played very well. And the thing is like the locker room apparently is really bad. Like someone opened the door prematurely into the locker room, like a part of the media before they were supposed to. And Calais Campbell was like restraining another defensive player from going after another. And like they're just it's really bad. So if they go to London, play bad against the Eagles and lose that game, like you could imagine that flight home. It's not going to be good.
Yep, that would not be good. All right, what's your next one?
All right, next, is Todd Gurley going to in fact break LaDainian Tomlinson's record?
Fact.
I agree with that. And here's a fun fact I came across, Bobby. He has 206.6 PPR points right now. Okay. There were just 11 running backs all of last year who scored that many PPR points.
That's incredible. How is that possible?
I have no idea. Legitimately no idea. Like, he's already scored more points this year than Ezekiel Elliott scored in 10 games last year, than Devonta Freeman scored, than Jordan Howard scored, Deion Lewis, Lamar Miller, all those guys. Crazy.
Right now, Patrick Mahomes is on pace for over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. Fact or fiction, he will be the NFL MVP this year as his first year as a starting quarterback.
Ooh, man, it's so tough. Man, if he would have finished the season the way he's played the beginning, I would say absolutely he's going to be the MVP. Do I think he keeps it up? That's the question. I mean, as of right now, it's tough to say that he's not. Matt Ryan should be in that conversation. Matt Ryan has carried that Falcons team.
Todd Gurley.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go non-quarterback here, and I think you hit it. I think Todd Gurley deserves the MVP.
Okay. I mean, I could definitely see that happening. All right, what's your next one? We'll each do two more.
All right. That Drew Brees does not finish as a top 8 fantasy quarterback from here on out.
Fact.
I would agree with you. I think with the running backs both being healthy, the defense playing a little bit better, I think Drew Brees is going to...
Hill playing in the red zone. They're only throwing the ball 25, 30 times a game.
Yeah. Those attempts were down last year, and it's like over the first 4 weeks, people thought, oh, this is the Drew Brees, like, you know, but no, they're starting slowly to start, like, they're going back to where they were last year. So I think there's a median between, like, I don't think he's like a top 3 quarterback play every single week like he was the first 4 weeks. I don't think he's like a QB2 like he essentially was most of last year, but I think he's more of like that low-end QB1 now.
All right, Tags, here's the next one, and this one is a little bit bold, but, you know, I wrote about this 2 weeks ago. I think Juju Smith-Schuster might be as good as Antonio Brown already. Fact or fiction, the Pittsburgh Steelers have 2 of the top 5 wide receivers in football.
Fiction. I did my top 20 list not long ago, and I don't have Juju in the top 20.
What?
I think Juju, from a talent standpoint, I like Juju. I would probably have him right around the 22 range, like right there.
Oh, Tags, what?
I really believe that Juju benefits from Antonio Brown more than people realize. He also benefits from the role that he plays in that offense in the slot. Like, he's a big slot receiver. That's tough to defend. It really is, and especially when you have someone like Roethlisberger who's going to target him relentlessly.
He is incredible, dude.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, I would put Adam Thielen over him right now, even from a talent standpoint. So, I don't think he's the best slot receiver in the game.
Give me Brown, Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham, and Juju Smith-Schuster, my top 5 most talented.
Did you not say A.J. Green in there?
A.J. Green's number 6.
Oh, get out of here. A.J. Green is like watching Julio Jones. Like, he's a little stick figure. That's the thing that hurts A.J. Green, because he's just too skinny, but he's so fun to watch play football. And if he's healthy.
Yeah, he's really good. But Juju's better.
No, he's not. No.
He is.
You guys need to at Bobby on this one. Tell him.
We didn't even mention Michael Thomas either, by the way.
Oh, it wasn't my list. I was going off yours. I was just talking about Juju being a 5. That's ludicrous.
Yeah, that's correct. We have so many good receivers in the game right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of good receivers right now.
Amari Cooper. I'm just messing. We shouldn't even mention that. We're going to get so much hate.
I am going to mention Amari because that's my last fact or fiction. Fact or fiction, a lot of people are going to eat crow after saying that the Cowboys should not have given up a first-round pick for Amari Cooper.
Oh, yes. Absolute fact. I will fight anyone who disagrees with me. In fact, that's how I spent the majority of Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, I know you did. And that's the thing is, like, we're fighting the good fight here for Mr. Amari Cooper. And you know what? I keep going back to this. Like, the thing is, if anybody wants to have a conversation with me about Amari and tell me why he's not good, like, don't point to fantasy points. Like, don't talk about the fact that he had one target.
Watch the film. Talk about the film.
Yeah, if you want to watch film, that's fine. And if you want to talk about some other things, we could talk about per target production. Like, he needs the targets, and going to Dallas, he's going to. But here's the thing. Bobby, you threw out a list, and I know you had so many tweets on it. The thing is, people are unwilling to admit that Amari Cooper was great for the first 2 years of his career. And all of a sudden, what happened over the last 2 years? Did he just become bad at football? Then people are out there saying that.
Still extremely efficient. He's one of the most efficient receivers again this year.
Well, they're saying that he's not passionate about the game. Like, who do you know? Like, do you know Amari Cooper personally? Have you been in that locker room? Don't tell me that someone that told you from outside the locker room that Amari Cooper doesn't have passion for the game. That's a bunch of crap. And I'm so tired of hearing people say that they know things, that Amari doesn't seem like he cares. Stop. Like, seriously, just stop.
Matter of the fact is, he has been more efficient than DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, and Mike Evans since Amari Cooper entered the league. That's what the stats say. I'm sorry. The difference is the targets.
On yards per target, while getting targets from Derek Carr, who's been extremely inconsistent. The thing is like, here's the thing. First round picks are so, like, legitimately, they're overvalued. It's kind of like dynasty formats. Like, everybody treats, first round picks like they're gold, and they are good to have. Don't get me wrong. But I said this, like, would you rather have DJ Moore than Amari Cooper? Stop it. Go back and look at some of the draft picks over the last few years. I think Jason Garrett.
Here's all the first round wide receivers since Amari Cooper was picked, including the year he was drafted. Mike Williams, Corey Davis, John Ross, Corey Coleman, Will Fuller, Josh Doxson, Laquan Treadwell, Kevin White, Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, Brashad Perriman, Philip Dorsett, and Amari Cooper. I would rather have Amari Cooper than any two of those.
I think Corey Davis is is close, but I do take Amari Cooper in that. And the thing is, I think Jason Garrett said it best. He goes, we need a wide receiver on this team. And you can't tell me that there's a wide receiver that we can get in this year's draft that has guaranteed production in the NFL that Amari Cooper has. I think it was a good trade for both teams. I don't think that.
Yeah, the Raiders had to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, if they wanted to move on, that's fine. I don't think it was a terrible trade for the Raiders, but stop saying that it wasn't a good trade for the Cowboys, because if Amari Cooper is the wide receiver that I think he is, that the Cowboys think he is, he was worth it.
All right, last one. Fact or fiction? Spencer Ware is the best backup running back in the NFL.
I'll say fiction.
Who do you have?
I mean, I think Royce Freeman's better. He's considered a backup. I think Latavius Murray might be just as good.
I mean, not for fantasy. I wouldn't rather have Spencer Ware than those guys, because those guys are playing right now. But when Spencer Ware comes into the game, Hunt is quicker, but in terms of just a better overall running back, they're pretty similar. I think Spencer Ware is still extremely good. If Kareem Hunt was to go down for the season, I would immediately put Spencer Ware as a top 12 fantasy running back.
Definitely, he would be a top 12 back. Like that, I'm not going to disagree with 100%. However, Kareem Hunt, I'm crediting myself for his turnaround, because so I'm really not. I'm just being sarcastic, but seriously, so I wrote in the primer, I think it was back in week 4, I had gone over Kareem Hunt's last 14 games, and legitimately it was terrible results. And I called it. I said, basically, is this guy just not what everybody thought he was? And here's the numbers. I laid him out, and they just weren't very good. Since that time, this dude, I've actually enjoyed watching him play football. And that's the thing is, some running backs, it's you get kind of bored. It's okay, I see this guy doing that. Saquon, I enjoy watching. Kareem Hunt over the last few weeks has looked like a man on a mission, and I enjoy the crap out of it. And the thing is teams are going to have difficulty stopping him, because they have to respect Tyreek Hill. They have to respect Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce. That team has so many problems to defend. They are a defense's nightmare. So Kareem Hunt, keep on doing it, man, because seriously, you've been balling out.
You know who I enjoy watching play football? It's Christian McCaffrey. And he has 15 carries in the last 2 games. What is going on here?
Yeah, it's the Panthers have kind of gone away from that. And if you look at McCaffrey's rushing volume over the course of the season without that Bengals game where he had 28 carries, where the Bengals were basically down to one healthy defensive tackle, it's been relatively similar to last year. He has only scored the 1 touchdown. The volume has been going down a little bit in the passing game. Greg Olsen's back. DJ Moore is getting more involved. So, McCaffrey.
And yet they've got this absolute stud that they just won't give the ball to. What gives? I'm sick of this.
I don't know what's going on there. And here's the thing, Bobby. This is the craziest part of it. Did you know that Christian McCaffrey has received 100% of the Panthers running back touches the last 2 weeks?
What?
In their last 2 games, he has touched the ball. Every single time it's been a running back touch, it's been him. CJ Anderson hasn't touched the ball.
Well, Curtis Samuel's kind of a running back.
He's like a hybrid, but he's listed as a wide receiver. So, but yeah, McCaffrey, like, they need to run the ball more. Like, that's clear as day. Like,
it's not going to happen this week against Baltimore. Probably not the next week against Tampa.
That's true. Well, this thing, Tampa's defense is starting to rack up some injuries there.
Yeah, but after that, McCaffrey has the best schedule of any running back, and it's not even close. So when he continues to struggle these next 2 weeks, please trade for him. He's got Detroit, Seattle, Tampa, Cleveland, New Orleans, Atlanta. That's a great schedule, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think McCaffrey's the type of guy, I think he's too big of a name to trade for because, like, people hold on to him with dear life.
His owners are mad right now.
Yeah, I think he's overvalued in fantasy. Like, there's 10 other running backs that I would rather own than him. And, like, that includes David Johnson. I at least I know I'm going to get some touchdown. I think Christian McCaffrey's floor is fine. I think he's a high-end RB2. I think he is what he is, and I'm not going to say he's like a terrible fantasy player, but I think the name value is worth more than his actual play.
All right, man. Well, that's all for today's show. Tags, that was fun.
Woohoo! I'll try and come up with another fun question. I actually made it like a legit goal of mine. So at the beginning of the show, when you ask me, you're like, Tags, what's going on? I just want to give you like a fun question to start the show off with every time.
Like when we started the show, I was feeling just miserable because I'm sick. Like, sorry you guys had to deal with that. But this really loosened me up. So you should have asked me at the end of the show.
Yeah, I should. Maybe I'll have 2 questions next time.
Sounds good. All right, and thanks to the sponsor of today's show, FanDuel.com. Let's keep the streak alive by winning these big satellite contests. If you win, let me know on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro. Tags us at Mike Tagliere NFL. And remember, we're giving away a signed Michael Thomas Saints jersey. Go to fantasypros.com/jersey-giveaway and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you've got a shot to win this thing. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.